Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Fact Chicks podcast. We are here to talk all about reinventing media education and what it takes to build a startup. But today we have a special guest, and we're very excited to introduce her. Her name is Louise Webster and a very good friend of ours. And we have been chatting a lot about what young people want in this world and what they're craving and what they can do beyond school and beyond the traditional status quo that we're all kind of, looking for more in life. And Louise runs Beyond the School Run. So she gives advice and opportunities to, parents who are looking to start their own things in their own free time and utilize the time that they have to the best of their ability. So before we get started, I don't know if you want to say a little bit about yourself, Louise, or the new venture you're creating, maybe how that ties in with what we're doing with Fact Studio, but I'll leave it over to you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be on your new podcast, and I absolutely love what you girls are doing. So thank you so much for having me today. So I'm Louise Webster. I'm the founder of Beyond the School Run. We connect mothers to their skills and talents to empower them to grow, both personally and professionally. And I'm deeply passionate about unlocking human potential. And I'm deeply passionate about unlocking human potential in those that face probably the biggest barriers. So Beyond the School Run is all around unlocking the potential of mothers and others. We're creating a brand, and what we're moving into is creating a wider brand called We Are Beyond Global, which houses 3 platforms. So Beyond the School Run, which is predominantly for mothers because there were so many barriers for mothers. And also we're soon to launch Beyond School. So the whole underlying mission is something I went looking for, because when I set up Beyond the School Run, I personally experienced all the barriers and started to try and find a whole new way of working. And I discovered something called your element or your spark. And what I realized is it's in everyone. And really, it should be unlocked in the school system, but all too often it isn't. And when you find this thing in yourself, which is like a gift that everyone has, it sets you on a path, and it sets you on this really exciting path of your own path. And for many, the reason Beyond the School Run was the starting point was because so many people had children, they were so up against it and trying to find meaning, finding purpose and a way of working when you're so consumed by raising children, that finding this thing that's your element was sort of like the most obvious thing for me. So Beyond the School Run was a starter for that. And then now what's coming, and it aligns brilliantly with what you girls are doing, is then I started to see the issues for school leavers coming out of school, that we'd put them through the school system, but then we put them out into the world and go, oh, now you just need to kind of just get on. But I don't know how they would know, how do they get on? How do they connect with the opportunities? A lot of them is about understanding yourself and what you're about and what you bring to the world. And all of this is often not explored in the school system. And what I really felt was we don't want to wait for them to get to 30 years and have created so many barriers for themselves to actually finding that thing. That if we could find that quicker. So Beyond the School Run, which we're launching, is very much a bridge between the school system and the wider world. And with the wider world of work changing so immensely with the emergence of AI, is now, for me, it's the greatest wake-up call we could ever have as human beings, to find but have places where people could find their element and their spark.
I think coming from your perspective is so interesting, where you've got Beyond the School Run, but you've also a parent yourself. And I think the first kind of focus we want to have today on the podcast is about parenting and digital realities. So coming from your perspective as a parent. So how do you see the realities of raising children shifting in this new digital era?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, because I think with anything, it's about a level of self-awareness, and whether it's in the real world or the digital world, it doesn't really matter. It's about once you kind of know yourself, then and I talk about this a lot in my book about connecting with what's right for you. So whether that's out in the real world or in the digital space, is knowing what's right for you, because there's some amazing ways in which we can use the digital world. And I mentioned earlier when we were talking about these incredible career creators who are out there on TikTok, who are changing, I think, the future generations' lives by really sharing some incredible content around work. And so that's where I think digital space is incredible. And also this opportunity for those young people who are born entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs to really set things up incredible. But equally, I think it's so important to know yourself well enough that you don't get consumed by the wrong content. and you know the right path for you, and you know how to connect, maybe in particular for boys, but also for girls, with the right people. And whether that's online or offline, we need to create the foundations for young people to know themselves well enough that they're not searching for something that's going to fill a gap in them, because that's not going to work. It's about using any of the opportunities, connections, and inspiration wherever it comes to you to move you forward and keep growing. So I think up to now, we haven't really talked that much about growth. And I think everything for human beings is about continual growth, but growing in the right way. Sometimes I kind of think about it as like a sat nav. You're either sort of like going on off on the wrong path, or you're on and everyone has this path. And I call it, for Beyond the School Run, you'll be on the school run journey. So I think there's so many amazing opportunities to use in the right way, but the foundations have to be set first to know yourself and know how best to use the digital space. And equally, that I think we've all had it before, where you haven't filled yourself up for the day, and then you start searching online. You can never really fill that, because you're really just searching. I remember that when the kids were really little and I hadn't kind of fully immersed myself in, or hadn't had enough kind of fulfillment throughout the day, then you're just, and that's what we want to make sure people know how to use it properly. And I think there's going to be a huge movement. I saw at Ideas Fest this amazing talk around how to really help children understand their brains and how it works, and how the impact of media, in fact, I need to probably tell you more about that, is the impact of media and what it has on you. And there's some amazing people working on that, which is fantastic. So I think there's some gaps to be filled.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting too, because it's something Haley and I have been chatting a lot about lately, is like we have so many positives that come from this digital realm that we're all in, the community, the career guidance, all of these creators that we're watching. And it's kind of like trying to give that self-awareness and that perspective and that understanding of what we're consuming online is ultimately shaping us as human beings. And like, I mean, I personally love the side of TikTok where it's like personal curriculum and self-empowerment and like bettering yourself and kind of like, maybe the career creators and things like that. But it's kind of, starting early before people get into this algorithm of understanding what they're trying to get out of it, what community they want to be a part of it, how can it better them instead of kind of deplete them as human beings. And it's a really difficult conversation because there is so much information out there and we're kind of in this like information overload. And it's what we've been shaping our brand and our voice around, is what more, like, how can we actionize the algorithm in a way of like taking everything that we're consuming, but giving young people the capabilities of putting that outward and like creating something with it. And it doesn't have to be, and I guess that's kind of what you're doing with Beyond the School as well, is kind of finding what they're excited about and what they want to do. It's not anything that we're telling them to do, like go into journalism or go into accounting. We're making them, or we're helping them find their skills in whatever it is that they enjoy. And I think that's just really important right now. So yeah, it's about, I guess, how do you balance the positives of the digital connection and the risks as well?
And yeah, exactly that. Like, and also helping people have the feeling. So it's a bit like before you exercise, you don't know how that feeling feels. Once you have that feeling, and maybe they haven't experienced that in the school system, where they've sort of gone, oh my gosh, this is where, and this talk I mentioned, I'm going to end up now thinking about a lot at Ideas Fest by this amazing woman who's dedicated her career to ensuring children go through the digital age and neuroscience, and but she talked about really sort of understanding how you shape your own life and how you use all of it to shape where you want to go forward. I mean, so many nuggets. I think she'd be able to share it so much better than me. But yeah, I think there's so many gaps for us to fill, but I think it's coming. And once people know that feeling, which I kind of mentioned like the start of this, then you'll want to find it more. But until you've had that feeling, you won't know. So I often think people that have created things on this planet, we often didn't know that we needed that. And that's what I feel is happening now with all of our work, that we're sort of bringing this to people to kind of, and once you're on that path and you kind of go, oh, I love that feeling so much, sort of everything else goes to the side. You don't look for you don't want the junk food, or you want to help, you want to feel better because you want to continue doing that amazing thing that made you feel really good. So all of that all adds up because you found that thing that lights you up so much that the rest kind of isn't so attractive, because the rest is sort of all the rest of the sort of scrolling unnecessarily on Instagram is just dumb. It's just a sort of dumbing down. Whereas when and I know this talk on Ideas, where she was talking as well about being really intentional about the content that you take in and the content that you put out. So being so intentional about what goes in is really important. It's like what food puts into your body. But we've
Yeah.
got a lot to do to help young people understand that.
Yeah, like what do you think? I mean, I guess yeah, it's hard because there is like so much information available for young people right now. What do you think are some kind of actions that like I guess parents as well could take to kind of get young people in the right on the right path in terms of consuming media?
Yeah, I think firstly for me, one of the biggest things is finding the thing that you love. And whether that's the thing you're going to do, it doesn't really matter. So that could be sport or something that just is that sort of doesn't mean that takes you away from the consumption on the digital side. And I often kind of say I can sometimes see it in people where they're sort of like doing something, they're so in their element and it's just so joyful that we can sort of like help them discover what that is. And secondly is to sort of get sort of just a bit more intentional about what you want to achieve. So, and utilizing the digital space for that. So whether that is you're wanting to get fitter or healthier, and then sort of maybe mapping things out a little bit clearer for young people as to how they can utilize it in a way that's really healthy and beneficial for them. And I often found, and certainly as a parent, what generally does work is when you're finding something else that distracts you, that you're not craving it. So getting clear on what that thing is, and whether that is, you're going out for a walk with your friends, or it just takes you away from that craving of being on a device and it just kind of filling a gap. There's a very different thing to utilizing it in a very different way. So I think there's a lot coming, I think, on that side as well, which is great to help parents, because it's not an easy thing to navigate, because it's so consuming for so many young people. And so there's a lot that we still need to do on this space. Eventually, I think it's going to take shape on its own in many ways. And I think there was some people some young people at Ideas Fest, that the impact of the the too much content had such an impact on them. They're now creating movements to help young people understand the impact of this overload of information out there. So from what I saw was there's going to be a lot of people that are going to come through that are sort of finding new ways for us to, and eventually I think it will just become unacceptable to be on your phone in a restaurant, or it will become the norm that we'll have sort of certain etiquette where it's just like, why are you doing that? That's just weird. I think that's going to happen over time.
I do think it's fascinating as well, is because I think, well, when it comes to Fact Studio and what we're trying to do, it's all about misinformation and AI and the dangers of it online as well. And so I think it's important to note that, like, fake news, for example, is not new. Like, there's been fake news. It's just the speed in which we consume it is now new, and so it's everywhere. And I think this is what Haley and I were chatting on the last podcast, is that, we consume so much misinformation online, and a lot of the current actions being taken against that is just creating more content to put in front of these people that are consuming, right? Like, how do we help young people? Well, we educate them. We tell them how to do this, how to spot it, and how to detect it. And it's like, but we need to fight fire with fire in a way, and getting more voices out there that are challenging against it or spreading the right kind of information or the right kind of content is the only thing I think that's going to make this online space that we're all in well balanced as much as it possibly could be. But then again, algorithms, I think, are a very difficult part of that. So we could put as much as we want online, but if those, young people and those kids and those people aren't in that algorithm, we're not reaching them. So they have to, it starts with them. Like, we can only put so much online, but it's however they just stumble upon it. I think that's ultimately, so it has to change their attitude, not just that more media.
That's what I'm really hoping we can bring, and all the others through Beyond School, is that a place where you feel so a bit like when you do go to the gym, you feel, and you're getting the right content coming through, that you're not then hungry or craving any other content, that you're like, this is pure, this is what I need, this is what's helping me grow, and this is what it feels like to grow. And I think that's where, and I think we do need to be careful, because there's so much for certainly these sort of younger, early teen boys that's so detrimental to shaping an equal society for boys and girls, that we just need to be, I think whilst we need to bring the good stuff and the positive, and places where people feel really at home in themselves, that they want to keep coming back time and time again. And like you said earlier, like, it's never about telling anyone. And this has always been my philosophy with Beyond the School Run as well, is that it's about creating these opportunities and inspiration, that you feel it, that you want to keep having you want to keep moving forward and finding those opportunities and things.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. So when I was at the UNESCO event last week, the main focus of the event was whether we ban or educate young people around social media. There was a big part of the discussion was about how young boys are going to these like fringe communities to try and seek, like a sense of belonging, right? And I mean, then came the debate whether we should ban phones at school. Does that actually help? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think you need phones in schools. I definitely don't think, because I think it is a distraction. I think, there's huge benefits obviously to having phones from a protection point of view and as a parent point of view, being able to get in touch with someone, but not being able to utilize it in school, I think and I've always kind of said, I don't think anyone needs it. But this whole thing that I learned in terms of young boys and why this content's getting through is because of this sense of belonging. And if you don't have a place where you feel like you belong or heard, then you start, without really knowing, you start so if we weren't creating this in society, those people that are feeding that content wouldn't even have a place to feed it. So what we don't, and then it just wouldn't go anywhere. Whereas what's happening is we need to address what's happening, that we're enabling them to feed. And we know who all these people are, and they call it the manosphere, what's going on in there. So we need to bridge that we ensure that what we're doing, which we do need to look at the school system and we need to look at society, because that's what's happening, because we're creating a space where boys aren't free enough to talk, and creating space where they feel like they belong and they can be themselves. So in fact, we're just creating a bit of a stereotype. And I think that then there's a sort of numbness or a need to look elsewhere. But as soon as we create these places where there's a sense of belonging, and I really think there's this whole opportunity for, certainly when kids are coming out of school, to create these incredible communities for young men to network and connect and share, which aren't out there yet. I'm seeing a small emergence of this already. But I think there's so much opportunity, and I think it's coming, because this is what is needed. It's really what is needed, especially for young men. And when we do this for young men, then we ensure this level of equality that we need to see in the world as well.
I think some of it also comes down to confidence. And I don't like on our last podcast as well, I might have said, if you're listening to this, question your parents or argue with your parents. And obviously, like, that can be like taken however you want it. But I was trying to get at the point where, sometimes as kids, and even like now, we kind of just don't think and in the community, we get stuck in comments and we like talk to people online, but we don't have the influencer status or the creator status. We don't really have that confidence to just like use our voice for certain things or start a movement. But I fear that like at home as well, and kids in school, because they're stuck through this like traditional system of how things work, that they might not want to ask why. They might not want to ask questions. And one of the biggest things that Haley and I are trying to do is, encourage that power of questioning. And even if you question it for no reason, at least you questioned it. And so, especially with so much of consuming, but I guess like, yeah, as a parent, I'm just curious, my take on, if you're hearing this, argue with a parent, like, what do you think?
I
How
love
can
that.
we encourage people to ask those questions?
Yeah, I love everything you said about that, because I think what we do is we take it out. We particularly do that to girls. So they have these incredible voices, and it's often the school system and the teachers that sort of stop that, because you've got to sit and you've got to like behave in a certain way. And I think what that does is then you, like you say, you start to conform. And so you don't see the world. And I think generations come in with this fresh outlook that's going to benefit everyone. So we shouldn't be arrogant enough to kind of go, sort of hamper that, like dampen this down. What we want is all of that fresh viewpoint. Like you say, the questioning, the view, the seeing. I remember how I used to see the world when I was younger, and the world was nothing like the way it was when I used to see it when I was younger. And now it's so much more of what I had always dreamed of. And we want the same, because they're going to come in with a whole new fresh. But I think as a parent, as a school system, and I often say, we have to be the ones that are open and we're the ones that are often learning. Again, we're the unraveling. So as a parent, the best thing you can do is unravel the programming that you've had. So I talk about this a lot in my book. The quicker you can do that, then the freer your kids are then to be themselves. So they're all free. They all got it. They know where they're at until we start to change that, both as through parenting and through the school system. What we need to do, a combination of the two, and if we can't do it in the school system, is so the best thing we can do is work on ourselves to not feel the need to set things as the way they are. So like you say, with the questioning, how brilliant is that? And the same, I feel like, in the working world is when kids come out of school is not to kind of see this as how the working world is. It's come in and go, oh, I don't like it like this. Or, oh my gosh, what are you doing like this 9 to 5? Like all of that. Each generation is going to come in with a new purpose. But it will be really detrimental for us as society if we sort of dampen it down. But it all starts, yeah.
I think and going back off the point I mentioned, earlier before this, is even with young founders and kind of like following your gut, because if we listen to so many, and we should listen to experts, yes, I'm not saying don't,
Right.
but if we listen to everybody who has been there, done that, and been experienced in their own time, in their own way, we're not going to get anywhere, and we're not going to move the needle forward, because ultimately we're living in a different generation. Things
Yeah.
evolve differently, and it's something Haley and I have been chatting a lot about. Is like how can we get of this younger generation into
Yeah.
the room with people, and like have it like reverse consulting, because we're always listening to people who have the experience, but what about the people who don't? Because I think there's so much value there.
I've been working recently with some interns on building beyond the school. And the thing that's dawned on me the most when I'm doing it is how patronizing society is to that generation. And I'm like, just stop it. The skills are all there, the talent's all there. Utilize it. And the communication around, I found the similar thing with motherhood, is the dialogue around teens is so dumbing down and so patronizing. And the same happened the moment I became a mother. I was like, why is society talking to us like this when we've done the most creative thing you can ever do on this planet and you're like ready to go? And yet the all of the rest of the world is sort of going, no, get back in your place, get back over there. There's no room for you here. You don't fit in here. And the same, I'm seeing this is like the opportunities, the environments, this talent is there. It's ready. It's like high energy. I'm ready to go. And then the world's like, oh, I want you to come and sit here and do some spreadsheets for some work experience. I'm like, I'm not suggesting people don't go and do work, but I'm like, because it's amazing. But I just think we're very patronizing in the way we talk. And yet I've just, the incredible interns I'm working with, they're incredible. And we're working very flexibly, but we're building stuff together. We need to change the environments we put them in after school. We need exactly what you said. We need to match up this sort of slightly older, maybe a little bit more start kind of, and we need to level it. So a bit like, I think the school system does this sort of power thing, doesn't it, with teachers, and I think we need to just get rid of all of that. And then the same should be there's respect and understanding of, great to learn from someone else a bit, but you might look at someone's journey and go, in your terms, that might be successful. That's no way success for me. And that's not a path I want to go down. And so, yeah, the future world is changing, and gosh, let's thank goodness for that.
I think it comes down to also that I think older generations, maybe they need to acknowledge that their kids have something to teach them, especially when it comes to social media. And I think
Nice.
it's fair to say that older generations do have sometimes very poor engagement when it comes to, like you're at a restaurant, and so this happens to my family, like we're all on our phones, and it's like the young people are like, okay, no, like let's put our phones down, let's engage. Let's actually be present. So yeah, I think young people have a lot to say when it comes to how we can use social media for good, which older generations are still, kind of grasping that part.
But I think whatever age it's almost like you're doing it for a reason, a gap that you're filling in yourself. So the understanding of yourself is the best thing you can ever do. Those whose minds have sort of got stopped generally is an effect of not continuing to grow. So then you sort of just can't see another way. Everything's about human beings. We're about growth. Yeah, I mean, this whole new way is going to bust through anyway. And yeah, the quicker people can be and not get, it's better for everyone. Minded, people learn. That combination, I think also in terms on society, and when you see people much later in life and the impact we have on the NHS and everything, if we could shape that now, and bring this incredible like wisdom that you have through that life, but then looking at the freshness of the talent, there's no better or right, it's just bringing it together. And we do everything in such isolation, it's totally unnecessary. We could all thrive so much, but sometimes I'm like, it could all be so much easier. It could all be so much easier. But the stifling of voices, the power, the ego, that. And I think we need to reshape things for the way we perceive early talent. I think we've got it wrong. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm working on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a brilliant end note ultimately because and like we said, we always have a good conversation when we talk about this, and so we really wanted you as one of our first podcast guests. So we really do appreciate you coming on. But I think there might be loads more to talk about at another day, especially with the launch of Beyond the School and everything you're doing and how that's growing and what we're seeing in the space because there's so much. And ultimately, that's just what we're here to decode, right? Just talk,
Yeah.
yap about and building a business and young people and all opportunity that's in the world.
I love it. And I just love what you guys are doing. And yeah, that fact we're sort of aligned on our missions. But yeah, I think there's so much evolving and it's super exciting time. And I'm super excited for you ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining,
Thank
Louise.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much for
Louise.
having me. Thank you.